Hi, everybody. I'm Terry Henney, farm broadcaster at WSGW in Saginaw, Michigan, and we are talking beans. First of all, I want to say thank you very much to the folks at BASF for presenting our program today. Talking beans with some guys that know all about the beans, not only from growing the beans, but putting them in cans and selling them. This is going to be a fun program here for the next few minutes, and I'm really looking forward to it. So let's get started with Joe Kramer, Executive Director of the Michigan Bean Commission. Joe, you're off and running today. I understand this is the first time you hopped in a plane in a while, right?
It is, Terry. Good morning. I did get to wear my mask for a long period of time, but all is well, and I'm really looking forward to today too.
Well, that's great. Joe, before we get started with our guest, now you're at a conference right now?
Just attending a short meeting with the growers, so busy.
Yeah, and the grower meetings are starting to add up, aren't they?
They're kicking into gear, but we got a long list of things we need to catch up on. Yeah,
we do. And I can't think of a better way to start than not only to have a little coffee here as we kick off our morning, but also talk about lunch and possibly dinner too, because one of the staples of a lot of our meals is beans. And you've got a special guest lined up for us.
I do, Terry. It's absolutely a privilege today to see an old friendly face. And maybe I shouldn't put it quite that way, but today's guest and I had an experience together 20 or 25 years ago that neither one of us have forgotten yet, and I would just assume he would forget it. But today we're really truly blessed to have Al Wiliams with us. Al is the CEO of Bush Brothers, and everybody that's listening today has probably heard of and consumed some Bush beans. And I was talking to the folks in the procurement department at Bush, and they told me that they wouldn't do this today. They just, I don't know if they didn't have time or what the issue was, but they wouldn't do it. But they had a stand-in that was willing. And I said, okay, sort of disappointed that I wasn't going to get procurement. And here we are this morning with the CEO of Bush Brothers today. I think when we met 20 or 25 years ago, you were part of the accounting department. And anyway, Al, I'm thrilled that you would take a few minutes and hang out with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, that was some more experience. We can maybe get into that a little bit later. So
yeah, off camera, right, guys? Off camera. And Al, you put
say that I'm still scared of heights. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. I'm still scared of heights.
Enough said. Right.
You kept the dog out in the other room there, Al, so he won't interrupt us.
Right, the dog is at brunch. Duke is having brunch right now. So,
for those that don't know what we're talking about, a lot of the marketing, a lot of the commercials evolved around a gentleman and the dog, which I thought was extremely creative.
Yeah, that's 1995, I believe, was when we kicked off the Jay and Duke campaign. So, and that was with baked beans. Roll that beautiful bean footage. And so now we're kind of transitioning over to the Beautiful Bean Company. So roll that beautiful bean footage is still around. So it's one of the longest running campaigns, in CPG. I mean, it's been going on forever.
Wow.
So.
Well, when you talk about the marketing history, tell us a little bit about the history of Bush Brothers.
Yeah, well, it started here in East Tennessee. We're in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so it started in a little community called Chestnut Hill, Tennessee. The family, AJ, had a little general store. I think it started that like 1897, and then got in the canning business with the Stokely brothers in about 1904. Then the AJ bought out the interest in Stokely Brothers in 1908 and started what everybody knows now as Bush Brothers and Company. So it started all the way back 1908. And primarily with tomatoes. And then, we had a lot of farmland and that sort of stuff here in the area close by. And but then TVA built Douglas Dam, which when you build a dam, you create a lake. And when you create a lake, you farm you can flood some farmland. And so that's what happened to us. So we lost a plant and a lot of farmland. And so then we started buying other plants and getting into other vegetables besides tomatoes, and did that really, up for the next several decades. And but then in 1969, Condon and a guy named Tom Rogutsky up in Augusta, Wisconsin, and they tell the story. It was with a bathtub and a boat paddle. They were trying to mix up the secret family recipe and figure out how to make baked beans. And evidently they did a pretty good job. So we've been selling baked beans ever since. And so when you get into the 90s, we decided we really needed to focus on focus on beans and baked beans. We were not, doing a very making much money, kind of spread out doing vegetables. There was a lot of competition, a lot of big players in vegetables. So we decided to focus on beans, and we've been focused on primarily beans ever since. So.
Now, as far as when we're talking about the beans, a lot of folks have used the beans. A lot of moms and grandmas out there bake beans, picnics that was a staple when it came to picnics in the summertime, was baked beans. We didn't have too many picnics really for a while last year. We had a little thing called a virus kind of changed the way we do things. How did it affect your business?
For us, a lot of people started going back to the grocery stores. And so most of our business is retail, so sold in grocery stores. So when you started to shut down schools and shut down restaurants, a lot of people went back into the grocery stores. And, so as people are cooking at home, it's so easy just to open up a can of baked beans and grill a hamburger or hot dog, with your family. And, a lot of variety beans, black beans, pinto beans. A lot of people were, picking up those items. So our business, it really, really started to grow. Of course, it being a shelf-stable business, we saw it early on. I would say, March of last year was a huge spike. A lot of people were pantry loading and emptying the shelves. So it had a real big impact in our supply chain right from the start. But then as time went on, I think they stopped wiping the shelves clean, but still kept buying the product. So we're still seeing, a really uptick in consumption. I think we picked up like 5 million new households or something, if you look at some of the data. So just a lot of new households. And some of the numbers, I believe total grocery store trips last year were up maybe 10%. Do you think about it? There's a lot of grocery store, that's coming off a really big base, right? So you got a huge base, and then you see that kind of increase, very substantial. And then you look at all the people that are shopping, online and then doing click and collect. So, it was very, our volume is done quite well during this time.
Were you able to sort of ramp up production and keep up with that demand as those new folks came in and old repeat customers like us just bought more? How did you turn up the output at the factories?
Yeah, we went to we were pretty much been running straight 6 days. I mean, we've been running. You have to down a little bit on Sunday. You've got to work on the equipment and that sort of thing, give people a rest. But we were able to increase capacity. We moved some items around, and so focused our plants a little bit more so we wouldn't have as many changeovers. We did some of that. We also, at the very beginning, had to limit the number of SKUs we were making. So so we reduced the items that we were selling, and so we were able to make more of the items, the primary items that people want. And we're now able to get back and get those items back on shelf. But at that time, we were just trying to make as much of the items that we knew people were wanting as fast as we could. But hats off to the our suppliers throughout the supply chain. Whether it's it's beans, it's cans, it's sugar, it's logistics, transportation. It's a big strain when you see that kind of growth that fast. We've been very
and it came fast. I think that's a really important point, right? It wasn't really easy to gear up and anticipate it.
I believe we almost had double our revenue from March one year to the next. So from 19 to 20, that 1 month. Now we haven't seen that every month, but that's how fast it happened.
When I go to the grocery store on those rare occasions that Kathy drags me along, and I see her swipe that little card gizmo at the checkout desk, and I think there's a lot of data collected off of that card. If I'm a new customer, you can read that data. What if I'm a repeat customer that always buys Bush's Original, and tomorrow I buy Black Bean Fiesta? Do you see that I'm a new customer for Black Bean Fiesta? Is it that detailed?
Yeah, a lot of that data is actually captured by the customer themselves. So for us to get to that data, we have to purchase it. But yeah, that data is available.
It's incredible.
Right. And so, there's all kinds of data, available out there. And, I know I'll have a conversation with my wife, and I'll open up Facebook and I'll see a fishing rod show up. And I'm like, I was just talking about it. It's almost scary sometimes.
It's a fact.
So we don't get that level of detail of data, but that information is out there, and it's very important because it's what we're trying to do is get consumers what they want.
Sure.
And get consumers, understand how their shopping habits are. Because, I think it's very important when you go to the grocery store that you have a consistent shopping experience. And if you're going in to buy a can of Bush beans, we want them in the same spot. We want to have a billboard effect to show where to find Bush, and that way you can walk in and get it. Because the average consumer only spends about 20 seconds in front of the canned bean aisle, for example. I mean, they're not. Yeah, they don't want to stand there very long. So you want that experience to be good for the consumer.
I'm not a retailer by any means, but I hear a lot of talk about positioning in the store and where you want to be versus where you are. And I've always sort of come to believe that the consumer perceives the most attractive, freshest product that they can buy, the healthy stuff, if you will, is kind of around the perimeter. And Bush Brothers has moved around in the store a little bit, or occasionally, right? I see them in the center aisles where they always are, but sometimes in end cap or someplace else. Is that part of a strategy? Are you folks anxious to be in a different part of the store or an additional part of the store?
Well, when you think about an end cap, we love being on the end cap, so we are always in favor of the end cap.
Sure.
Now, that's not a free choice. So
I understand that.
They said that's valuable real estate. So we work with our retailers, and they have different promotional opportunities. So they will move us around in the store for different promotional opportunities for us. But we're very happy to be where we are in the center of the store, because if you want vegetable protein, there's no better place to get it than the canned bean aisle, right? I mean, that's where your vegetable protein resides. And the can is an unbelievably sustainable package. I mean, it is infinitely recyclable.
Yeah.
About 70-80% of all steel gets recycled. About 38% of the cans that we use comes from recycled steel. So it is an item that gets recycled and recycled. And so I think the message is, how do you communicate to people in the farming community, the sustainability of the bean?
Sure.
The amount of protein that you get from a bean, and then you think about the amount of water that it takes to get protein, the other protein you have to feed to get animal protein. It's a very sustainable source of protein for anybody in the world. It locks nitrogen in the soil, so a lot of farmers rotate their crops because beans are good for the soil. So it's a very sustainable bean. So when you think about the bean in the can, we're trying to communicate to people. I'm working right now with a group of CEOs to do a can coalition, and really just telling the story about the can and how sustainable it is.
don't you think COVID has actually helped us tell that message a little bit? I mean, I think people are buying more cans. I know that in our office, we're getting questions almost daily about the born on date of a can of beans or the expiration date of a can of beans. And you can just tell these are folks that are kind of new to this. And I don't know that we have to have an expiration date on a can of beans. I suppose some people do think you should, but the tin can, the aluminum can is a great vessel for storage.
Right. And the thing that it's very important for people to understand is you put a best by date on there, but when you seal that can and cook it, because that's what you're doing, you're cooking the beans. You can't eat a dry bean. You got to cook it. I mean, and so what we do is we seal the can and we cook the beans in the can. But when that product cooks in the can, it thermally processes any bacteria. And so you don't put preservatives in it.
Right.
The actual cooking the product preserves it. And so, that's the beauty of canned beans. And you lock in, they say, well, how about the nutrients? Well, I mean, they're in the can. They're
Where can
locked
they go?
in. So they're not like seeping out of the metal. I mean, it's just, they're in the can, you pour them out, you eat a can of beans. I mean,
and of course, we've got a lot of different sizes of cans. And in my limited shopping experience, from one time to the next time, I'm seeing a lot more different kinds of bean products with the Bush label on. I'm real curious, how has the product grown over the past several years? I mean, you're doing a lot more with the bean that's in the can than you used to.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna do a lot more. We've got we got 4 items coming out this spring called sidekicks, and so they're going to be a little more variety bean type items. So there'll be a black bean in there, but it's to get more usage occasions, because one of the things that we've seen, we are used a lot in hamburger and hot dog occasions. But here's a statistic you may not know. People think they eat baked beans a lot with hamburgers and hot dogs, but it's really less than 10%.
Really?
So yeah, so it may be only 6% of the people actually eat baked beans with hamburgers and hot dogs. So you can imagine, what we want, if we could get that 6% up to 8%. I mean, that's a 30% growth. I mean, we're all about it. So that's a great great usage occasion for us. But then one of the things we've noticed with COVID, and one of the things we're seeing, our variety beans, our other edible beans, are growing considerably too. And so when you think about the blacks and the pintos and those type of items, so now what we're doing is a lot of people, a lot of younger shoppers, like my daughter who's in college, she doesn't really have she hasn't really been cooking a lot until COVID. When she came home, she started to cook. And so, so now if we can provide them with an item similar to the baked bean, where you just open it up and heat it and eat it. If you can do that with pintos and blacks and those sort of things, we see a big opportunity there to create another baked bean with our variety bean business. So to your point, Terry, we see a huge opportunity in beans, because a lot of people, a lot of younger consumers are moving. I wouldn't say that they're like going to be total vegetarian, but they're eating less meat at every occasion. A lot of people are. I'm not saying all people are, but it gives people options. And so that vegetable protein that people are looking for in a seasoned bean that they don't have to do things with, such a quick occasion. So within 5 minutes, you've got almost a complete meal.
Such a huge opportunity.
Yeah. We have a commentator on the radio, Al, that practices saving money. Dave Ramsey.
Oh yeah.
One of the number one staples, he says, is okay, you got to go on a pork and beans diet. It's pork and beans, pork and beans, pork and beans. Mm-hmm. And he's talking to a 35 to 54 age group, which, in my opinion, is a big growth area, and it's something that, quite frankly, a lot of those have not had the bean diet like we're talking about now. And again, I'm real curious of awareness for the product. I'm assuming, again, the virus has generated that. Are you going to be able to sustain that growth and grow upward from that?
I would be surprised if we can sustain 100% of the growth that we saw with COVID. A lot of the numbers that I've been looking at are showing that when you look at the center of the store, and let's say that the center of the store, 61% of the people were primarily shopping center of the store, and that number moved up to 71% during the COVID period. So it's substantial. So you can imagine that's a huge revenue increase in the retail industry. The expectation is that number will probably fall back, but maybe fall back and end up at about a 64% number, which would still be a 30% increase from where you were pre-COVID. Now, ideally, what we want to do is take that number. We would rather it be, instead of 30, 50. Ideally, we would keep every one of those consumers.
Yeah.
But we understand that some people will, because if you think about the workplace, for example, a lot more people are working at home. So if people are working at home, they're eating more lunches at home. They may be eating more dinners at home. They may be snacking at home. So you're going to be eating those type of items. As the world goes back a little bit more towards where we were, we do see restaurants opening up and, kids going back to school more and eating more meals out. So I would be, and since such a large percentage of our business is retail, I would be hard pressed to say that we're going to be able to keep that business and grow all of that. But we do feel like a lot of these things, just as I mentioned, my daughter, she's buying meals and cooking at her apartment at college now. And she was not doing that, a year ago. And it's fun. They are actually enjoying it. They get like these meals to go and they have these meals that they call in, and they get, it's almost a meal, a kit. It's a meal kit. And she and her girlfriends get together, 2 or 3 times a week and, cook and, watch Netflix or whatever. And I mean, it's like a little party. So
I think that that's a really important point, because I think people during COVID, our household, my kids and their families have sort of rediscovered, number one, they saved a lot of money staying at home.
Yeah.
And they actually, I think, have gained a greater consciousness about trying to eat a little bit healthier, and during COVID anyway, and they're enjoying hanging out at home and cooking with their friends and family. So we're cheering for you to maintain all of it. Trust me, right? Yeah. The Michigan Bean guys are all about you maintaining all of that market. But I don't think we're going back to the old number. I think that we have gained a lot of ground, and I think that's exciting for us.
Yeah, I don't see us going back to the old number at all.
No.
Now, Terry, I will say one thing. You mentioned Dave Ramsey. If I'm not mistaken, Dave Ramsey is a Tennessee Volunteer, so from right here in Knoxville. So now you need to remind him it's Bush's baked beans would be a lot better bang for the buck. So,
that's a really good point.
I think you could personally just stop by and knock on his door and give him a couple cans, okay? Yeah.
Grab a couple fresh ones off that line and set them in his mailbox.
Well, I think Joe said what a lot of us, myself and a lot of the farmers that are out here, we really appreciate the support, Al, of Bush Brothers. Obviously, we're in the market to deliver to you a quality product, and hopefully you're able to take that quality product and sell it and create a demand. So the next step is, all right, we've got a demand that's right now in our country. Do you work with Mexico, with Canada? Do you sell product there? How far reaching does Bush Brothers sell their product?
We're primarily North America. We sell a little bit in Canada, but we're primarily in the United States. But we have looked at some other areas. and candidly, right now we're making all we can make just to sell what we can in the United States. So we got our hands full right now. But to your point, I really want to say thank you to you guys and to the farmers. I know we've been in this business a long time, and we've seen some good years and not so good years, some tough years, but you guys have stuck with us, and it's been a great relationship. And I think, there's nothing more wholesome than the American farmer. That it's just a great story. Like I said, my wife's family, they're farmers. Her dad was a farmer. Her 3 brothers were farmers. Her nephew's now farming. It's just, they're just great people that, and it's just it just means a lot to be in this industry. When you meet people and talk to them about the generations of people that's been in farming, and America feeds the world, and it's because of people like you that make that happen, and it's really proud to be a part of that, and we're just proud to be able to hopefully as we tell the people in the can business, we're selling value-added beans and value-added cans. That's what we try to do. So we try to add a little value to the bean and sell it. But it all starts with outstanding crops and products. So we're really grateful for that, and always have been. It's been a wonderful relationship.
I've had a chance to know the folks at Bush Brothers, and I just. Al, how much I appreciate everything that Bush does, and how much I personally value the relationships that I have there. And when I think about the growers over the years and the leadership, if you will, that Bush Brothers brings to the table, right? Early contracting, all of those pieces that kind of set the stage for what the next year might look like. And the other piece that I really appreciate is Bush Brothers people come to Michigan. They come and see us. They hang out with growers here. They're interested in the growers' ideas and opinions, and they don't always agree, and they can't always keep both sides perfectly happy, but they always seem to find a kind of a common ground to stick them in the ground and get them shipped off. And so I just, on behalf of the growers here and the dealers as well, thank you for what Bush Brothers has done for our industry and continues to do. And again, we're creeping up on a half hour here, Terry, but Al, thank you so much for making a little bit of time for us today. And it is truly a privilege to see you. And I know the chair you sit in today probably got a lot of pressures on your time. So I know what it took to get you here, but thank you very much.
Al, we're going to have to do this again, and quite frankly, we will give you the time that you can tell us the story that you really want to tell us, about that guy right over there, okay?
That's right.
Signing off.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. No, hey, thanks. Hey, I really, like I said, I really appreciate, the farmers, and, if we don't have great suppliers, we're in manufacturing. If we don't have great suppliers, we don't have a great company. So, it is very fundamental. You're kind of the foundation that we're built on. So thank you very much for everything you guys do.
You are really,
everyone.
All right.
Yes, our best, everybody at Bush. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. Well, Joe, another fun program. We've got more coming up in the next few months. Looking forward to all of that. So take care. We'll talk to you again soon. All righty. And maybe even on the farm show. I don't know if it'll be today or maybe tomorrow. We'll talk about that later. You take care. All right.
Thanks, Terry.
And again, we want to say thank you very much to all of you for spending a little bit of time with us, and for the folks for bringing this program to us today, the folks at BASF. We're talking beans.
It's never just been a field. It's a lab where beakers and vials are corn stalks and bean pods. It's 1,000 dinners on 1,000 plates throughout the world. It's the engine of the American economy. It's our survival. It's never been just a field. It's our future. All of ours. Your field is the future. BASF, we create chemistry.